Loading podcast. I'm Jason McClaren with my guest, Cliche Larke. Cliche, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
Definitely. So, Cliche runs LC Business Services, and we're going to talk today a little bit about AI, how it can affect small businesses. But before that, Cliche, you want to start off, tell us about a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I am an educator first. I spent 10 years teaching psychology and sociology. I also worked on the student services side through um, success coaching and advising. After 10 years, I decided that I needed to pivot. Having my son was just a little bit more challenging. Working in education as far as salary. So I decided to pivot, wasn't quite sure of where I was going to land. Started working as an executive assistant, realizing while I was in that space that the traditional executive assistant role was not necessarily what it is today. So there's more project work. And so that's kind of how I got introduced to project work. Through those experiences, I realized that that was something I was really good at going into project management, leading projects, the documentation part of it, just the really processes and system thinking is kind of where I've always been. Um, and it just kind of evolved into me starting to freelance. And then here I am today.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you talked about moving from education to another field. I'm the same way. I was a military firefighter, got out, and then I went into higher education and did
Mhm.
that for a while. And then now I work full time in healthcare. And like you said, like it was a big shift moving into healthcare, not only operationally, but also obviously revenue generation. And so, yeah, so definitely, like you said, don't pigeonhole yourself or stay in something just because that's what you do. You can always look outside and grow from there.
Definitely. And I also believe, even to this day, I'm still an educator in everything that I do. So,
Yeah, and I've like you said, same thing. I've evolved and used my skills that I learned being a fire instructor, higher education, and in healthcare now I do facilities and safety. So it's always education. I mean, that's one of the things we get graded on is how we educate staff. You know, how we are, tracking metrics and KPIs and that sort of thing. So
mhm.
um, yeah, I think we can grow and we can use those things to kind of better ourselves, but also lean into things that we've learned and build off of that. So cool.
Definitely. Mhm.
All right, so that led you all to start LC Business Services. What led you to start it, and then you know were there any kind of challenges getting that going?
So when I started freelancing, I did a lot of project coordination. It really exposed me to some state agency projects with surveying, some strategic planning projects with nonprofits. And while I was subcontracting as a freelancer on some of these projects, I met someone and she just said, oh, do you have a business? I was like, no, I'm just a freelancer. I just want to do the work. That's it. When I think about having a business, there's so many other pieces to that than to just truly do the work. And so she sat me down. She said, no, you really need to start your business. There's more opportunities out there in the consulting space, especially getting into subcontracting under prime contractors in the government space. And so that led me to actually go and file my LLC and become a business and start working on, my capability statement and really push the past performance work and the projects that I had worked on to the forefront so people could really see that, I am in the space, I'm doing the work. And then also during that time, I sat and got my PMP. So, mm,
So you were talking there about like capability statements and things. I think a lot of people that start a business don't really understand those things when they're bidding projects or even just trying to submit quotes for things that a lot of these larger companies, and especially if you're doing government work, you have to submit those capability statements and previous work examples and that sort of thing, because these are six-figure contracts sometimes that you're trying to go for. Was there any way that you kind of learn to do that, or you just kind of do research on your own, or you take any classes, anything like that?
So, a couple of things. So, the woman that I spoke of, her name is Tia Amadora. She owns Hasil Consulting. She taught me a lot of just like basic how to transfer my experience and skill set to really reflect in a capability statement, and how to set myself up on sam.gov and things like that. And then through the Public Health Club, they had a program subcontracting to six figures. And throughout that program, it shows you step by step what you need to do, and even support in how to develop draft and submit proposals, how to search for the proposals. So I did that program too. So it's been really helpful. And it actually led to me winning my first contract. So
Good deal. Yeah.
thank you.
Uh, Always using those resources, I think, is good, and finding a mentor that can help you, kind of with some of those hurdles. I know when GoHeroes, the company that runs this podcast, we started getting in SAM and all that stuff, sam.gov. And of course, you'll get hit with a bunch of emails of people trying to help you. And sometimes you don't need it. And they're just, I don't know where they get the emails, but they'll try to like say they're going to help you do it. And really you can do it all on your own if you have a good mentor or do your research. So
Definitely. And I agree with that. If you really take the time to focus and do the research and then have someone guiding you, it really helped me out because when I first got on the sam.gov site, I was so intimidated. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't even want to look at these. And she was like, no, let me show you how to find the primes that win the contracts. That's what we're looking for. And so she was very helpful.
yeah, and then finding all your codes, your UAIC code and all that, your SIC code, you got to have all that stuff to get in there, but that's another whole nother podcast
Oh, yeah.
episode. All right, let's talk about AI. I think, everybody's into AI right now. We got OpenAI, Grok, Gemini, all the different large language models, but there's also different AI softwares out there. I actually had a meeting earlier today about one. Um, let's talk about AI and small business first. So, I think a lot of small businesses have kind of leaned into these large language models, and you can see on LinkedIn or their Facebook or their social media, people that use these a lot can kind of tell, hey, this was written by one of these large language models. So how can some of those things, if small businesses are using AI, how can that lead to failures for small business?
I always say the AI is there to support the human, not to do the job. And I could really be honest and admit there were times when I first started using a lot of the tools, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, especially ChatGPT. When I set up my voice AI and I'm just talking to it all day, I would literally just talk to it and the responses I would get, I would use those to reply to things. And I felt like I lost my voice because I just really just had the model just doing everything for me. Um, Understanding how to actually use the tool is important. It's there to use it as a research tool. Still do the work yourself. Use it as a research tool. Don't have it do the job in the work for you. And you can easily get caught up in that. And I feel like that's what we're seeing across social media, a lot of it. They're creating all the content through one of the LLMs, and then there's no one going back and actually reading it or revising it or editing it. They're just, okay, that's good, just post it. So,
Yeah, they're not humanizing it. I think, like you said, using it as a tool, maybe to give you bullet points or even maybe write a rough draft of something, maybe useful. But when you see it says, in the fast-paced world of this, that first sentence always gives it away that this was written by ChatGPT. And then,
jargon.
yeah, and then it'll have like three bullet points, and they all have, emoji at the beginning. That those are kind of the key takeaways. Um, I've been
The
using
M dash.
ChatGPT, yeah, and the M dash, and I've been using ChatGPT for since it came out for 2 or 3 years now. And like I said, I use it for outlines or for talking points. like you said, I will talk to it and then I will have it kind of summarize or give me better ideas than I had before. Gemini, I've kind of moved to Gemini lately because I'm
Mhm.
seeing some better things out of that. And um, I think OpenAI has seen this also. They put out a code red a couple, I think it was a week or so ago that um, it was actually having a lot of hallucinations and glitches. So a lot of people have moved to Gemini or Claude or something else because they're seeing some of those glitches in ChatGPT because it's not pulling accurate data.
Mhm.
So with all that, that can be like an operational red flag, right? So how can we get ahead of that and make sure that we're not falling into those gaps?
When it comes to operations, I would say guardrails. Being mindful that the tools can hallucinate. Um, Putting that human in the loop in the workflow or the process. Once the output comes through, notify someone on the team to review it to in fact see if the information is accurate. That's very important. Always, it doesn't matter what you automate. You always want to have a human in the loop at some point in that workflow to review, make any edits, humanize it before you put it out. And also, I do this. I've went back to pen and paper. I put my thoughts down on pen and paper, and then I start using some of the tools. And I'll use three different tools and see what kind of results come from each tool, and then kind of expand from that. So I wouldn't fully commit to just one tool either.
Okay, cool. So we talked about large language models. Is there any other AI that we need to be looking at for operations?
So when I support my clients to build out workflows, a lot of times before we even get to the automation and workflow part, I always do a workflow audit. I look at their processes because a lot of the work that I did started with process documentation. Um, a lot of companies I've worked for, and even just the clients I work with, when you ask them how they do the work, they can talk to you about it, but it's not documented anywhere. So I like to start with that first and document the processes and then process map it and identify like is this actually effective the way you're doing it? And once we take a look at that piece and find any gaps or bottlenecks and adjust, then we start talking about okay, let's figure out which tools can really support in certain parts of the workflow. So for me and my team, we have like a go-to tech stack when we work on workflows with clients. A lot of that is using, of course, N8N, Airtable. Airtable, I always say, especially with my clients that really don't are not at a they don't necessarily have a CRM, but they need to start collecting some type of data. Airtable, I feel like is simple enough to really support you at a beginner level. So we use Airtable. We also use, of course, an LLM in the workflow if it's needed to create a proposal or some type of messaging or documentation for a client. Um, but we really kind of stick to those, and then depending on the workflow and any additional tools that the client may have, we might implement some of those. But when I work with my clients, I even tell them a lot of them are Google Workspace users. I tell them to start there. Gemini is embedded in all of the Google tools now. Start with the generative AI and see how it helps you in Google Docs, Google Sheets, even Google Slides. I've tried it a couple times. It's getting better. Um, but even just in the everyday work that they do, just start with those tools.
Yeah, I think Airtable, I haven't used that in years, but I probably need to look at it and see if it's evolved since the last time I used it.
When was
But
the last time you used it?
oh, probably it's been at least 8 years, probably. So
Yeah,
yeah.
they have agents now. So
Oh,
you
there you go.
can, yeah.
Well, with GoHeroes, we have a lot of filtering of like for people listening for your CRM. Basically, for GoHeroes, when we get a veteran or first responder that needs assistance, they fill out a form, which then they get loaded into our CRM, because then we can manage what they need from there. Right now, we do a lot of it manually. So we're looking at these type of tools, AI tools, to kind of automate. One, is it something that we can help with? Because we get a lot of basically, hey, I just want cash, and we don't do that. We don't provide monetary, donation or monetary supplements to people directly. So if we could automate that, where it just responds to them with what we do is we do research organizations that will, and we provide those tools to them. But right now we're doing all that manually. And that's just one example. And we have like this podcast, when people sign up, or they want to be a guest like yourself, they fill out a form, and it's, basically, what does it call it? Basically checks to see if they're a good fit for the show. And then if they are, then it kicks it over to the calendar, they book a time, and then we end up recording like we're doing now. So a lot of that we have a couple of things connected, but I think Airtable, we tried to do it with Airtable at the beginning, but it couldn't do what we wanted to do. So.
Oh yeah. A lot has changed, especially with their workflows and automations within the tool itself. Rarely now do you really need to bring in an outside tool, especially with the new agent features that they have. Which I think that's where a lot of these products are going to now. They're especially like when I think of ClickUp, they have brought a lot of the tools that you would probably use, like communication, Slack, and things. They brought it into the tool because they want it to be the one-stop shop. And with their Brain AI feature, it's game changing. So
Yeah, we're actually moving to a whole new system, whole new software, but yeah, there's tons of things out there. I think utilizing a consultant like yourself, these businesses can kind of figure out what tools exactly they can use, and then, build them out. And it sounds like that's what you're doing with your project management. I'm a Lean Six Sigma yellow belt. For those that don't have that or don't know what it is, it's a project management tool or skill that you can get. Um, uh, but yeah, PMP is another one that you can get. But I think you're using the same tools that we kind of use in the Lean Six Sigma program. But I think companies that don't have that resource can kind of call you and go from there. Is that correct?
yes, I'm a process improvement certification from Six Sigma. So yeah, I kind of blend both of them. I blend both of them together when I work with my clients.
Yeah, like I said, I'm just a yellow belt right now, hoping to get my green belt pretty soon. And we GoHeroes works with a couple black belts on trainings, so
That's great.
definitely an option for people out there. All right, so if people want to get a hold of you, how could they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, LC Business Services LLC. They can look me up, Cliche Larke. They could check out my website, www.lcbizservices with an S.org.
Good deal. I'll put all those links in the show notes so people can just click right on them and get to you, and then reach out if they need any assistance. Cliche, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Jason. Have a good day.
There are thousands of leadership and management podcasts to choose from. We're glad you chose the Leadership Loading Podcast, a GoHeroes production. If you'd like to support GoHeroes Inc., visit www.goheroes.org. And with that, it's time to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We sincerely hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Let's all grow together. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Loading Podcast. Leadership inspired.